What are the best power moves you've ever seen someone do in real life? My father told me this story. He had a friend that took philosophy class and they were discussing authority. The teacher made an example. If I say, the class is over, you can leave, you will do it. But if Mark says the same thing, you will stay here. After that, Mark stood up and said the class was over, they could leave, and every student left the room. My father didn't have a lecture at that time, and when he asked his friend why he wasn't in his philosophy class, he told him this story. It's gotta be that guy who moved the whole battleship to get the sun out of his tired eyes. One of my favorite stories on here, lol. The story, late to the party, but this one is too good to pass up. I was once on a US military ship, having breakfast in the wardroom, officer's lounge, when the operations officer, OPS, walks in. This guy was the definition of not a morning person. He's still half asleep, bleary-eyed, basically a zombie with a bagel. He sits down across from me to eat his bagel, and is just barely conscious. My back is to the outboard side of the ship, and the morning sun is blazing in one of the portholes, putting a big bright ass circle of light right on his barely conscious face. He's squinting and chewing, and basically just remembering how to be alive for today. It's painful to watch. But then zombie OPS stops chewing, slowly picks up the phone, and dials a bridge. In his well-known "I'm still totally asleep" voice, he says, "Hey. It's OPS. Could you shift our bar put? Yeah, 165. Thanks." And puts the phone down. And then he just sits there, squinting, waiting. And then, ever so slowly, I realize that the big blazing spot of sun has begun to slide off the zombie's face and onto the wall behind him. After a moment it clears his face, and he blinks slowly a few times, and the brilliant beauty of what I've just witnessed begins to overwhelm me. By ordering the bridge to adjust the ship's back and forth patrol by about 15 degrees, he's changed our course just enough to reposition the sun off of his face. He's literally just redirected thousands of tons of steel and hundreds of people, so that he could get the sun out of his eyes while he eats his bagel. I am in awe. He slowly picks up his bagel, and for a moment I'm terrified at the thought that his own genius may escape him, that he may never appreciate the epic brilliance of his laziness, since he's not going to wake up for another hour. But between his next bite he pauses, looks at me, and gives me the faintest, sly grin, before returning to gnaw slowly on his zombie bagel. This kid from my class in high school was too late for physics class. When he entered the class, the teacher said, "When you are too late, you know you are not supposed to enter that door, Jacob." So, this happened on a summer day, and the fire exit door was open. After 10 minutes we hear this walking sound on the metal steps of the emergency stairs outside. We had class in room 403, the 4th floor. After a while we all see Jacob entering the room from the fire exit like nothing happened, and sit down. I was meeting up with my friends at the bar. They had all been there for a while, and comprised about 90% of the bar's business. When I walked in, the hostess decided I was going to be the first one charged a cover fee for entry. I told her I wasn't there for their event, and just wanted to sit with my friends already at the bar. She told me tough luck basically, and that I would have to pay. I yelled over to my friends. She wouldn't let me in without paying, and they all just stood up and left so we could go to our favorite bar instead. Was only like a $5 or $10 cover, and instead of getting it, they lost the majority of their current business, about 7 people total, all of whom drink more than they should. My friends made me look like a boss, but it wouldn't have been a power move without them. I'm lucky to have a great group that has each other's back. It was a small thing, but funny as duck, to me. Driving somewhere with my brother in the middle of the night. Stop at the gas station. Kid runs up to the car as we're going to drive away. My brother rolls down the window. Kid asks my brother to buy him smokes. My brother tells him straight to duck off. Kid tells my brother to duck off for disrespecting him, and that he best drive off like a bitch or him and his budders will beat us like the pussies we are. Some shit like that. My brother says some shit like, "Oh, sorry sir, I guess I need my budders then," and flashes his badge at the kid. Kid's eyes went huge, and he ran. Was at a Mexican restaurant on Cinco de Mayo. Place was absolutely packed, yet somehow there were only like 2, maybe 3 waiters on staff. We'd been there like 40 minutes and had drinks, but still hadn't gotten to order food. This dude at the next table stands up, starts taking people's orders, and delivering them to the kitchen. The other waiters seemed like they really appreciated it, because people were starting to get pissed until that point. He didn't take my table's order, but he took one nearby and he sounded pretty fun. A friend ran into him a few months ago, and said he's really cool. My boyfriend's 5-year-old niece was sitting on my lap. Her 7-year-old brother wanted to sit on my lap, so she farted on me, and was like, "Guess you'll have to sit in my fart cloud now." Had a friend walk up to a girl at a party and say, "You are the hottest girl here and I am the best looking guy. We belong together." He took her home and they are married now. She was the hottest girl there, it's debatable on him. So, I don't know if this counts, but I used to work retail full time in college. For those who don't know, most retail is like, horrendously shitty. Anyways, we had to ask for days off like a month plus in advance, and paid time off was basically unusable unless you asked 3 or more months in advance. Of course this led to people being sick all the damn time, like we were a bunch of middle schoolers or something. It was December, and my family was planning an out-of-country vacation in late July. So, I put my time off request in the book, mid-December, dated it, and mentioned it in passing to my manager, just so he'd have a heads up. Off note, I had plenty of paid time off to make this work, either way. So, May rolls around, and they're making the July schedule, and my manager, Bob, says, "Yeah, unfortunately altered Sarah, I'm not going to be able to accommodate your time off request next month." Me, huh? Bob, there's no one to cover you for a whole week. Me, well, I hope you find someone. Bob, I can't, sorry man, you can't go. Me, yeah well, look, it's not a request, bud. I'm going. It's been on the calendar for like 6 months. Find someone to cover it, or don't, but it's honestly not my problem. Bob, well, unfortunately I'm going to have to put you on the schedule anyway, and you can explain to Jen, store manager, why you won't be at work. Me, sure thing, I feel like I'll probably have some pretty bad diarrhea that week, unfortunately. Then I went right upstairs and told her the same thing I told him. It's not a request, I have the paid time off, and I put it down 6 months in advance. Find someone to fill in for a week, and if you can't, hire someone new. I took my vacation, and worked there for another year. I did basically this once. When I was in college, I was working on getting a summer job. When I was interviewing for this job, I told them I had full availability and that I very rarely take time off. I also told them that the only time that I can't work is 3 days in a row in late July. Well, I got the job, and true to my word I worked all summer without time off requests, other than that 1 week. A couple of weeks before that week, when scheduling for that week did come, I got pulled aside and told that they would need me for that time. Something about how they didn't have enough people that knew all the positions that I did to be able to cover me. Basically, if I went they would fire me for not showing up on those days, and if I called in sick they would know that I was lying. I looked at my boss and asked him, "So if I go, are you gonna fire me?" He told me yep, and that I can't go. So at that moment I started to take off my name tag and other parts of my uniform. When he asked me what I was doing, I replied, "If you're gonna fire me in a couple of weeks for this, I'm just gonna let you do it now. See if you can get all my shifts covered for 3 weeks." His tone quickly changed. Dropped my son at preschool early with breakfast. Only other kid there was a girl eating her breakfast at one end of the table. She bats her eyes and says, "You can sit by me." He says, "I like this seat over here, at the other end of the table." And she got up and moved. So, I'm in the US Army, and it is really easy to get kicked out of the army these days. Recently, an investigation got started on some of the guys I work with. They were accused of doing and selling drugs, but there was no evidence to support this. No drugs, not positive urinalysis, no paraphernalia, nothing. However, due to an attempted power move by the chain of command, these guys were all gonna get kicked out. Well, obviously they all lowered up and started defending themselves. This whole process took so long that a couple of these guys were set to get out of the army anyway. So the chain of command extends them so that they can continue to chapter them. That's when shit starts popping off. Soldier 1 finds a regulation that says that you cannot extend a soldier with the express intention of chaptering them. He prints it out and drops it on the commander's desk and starts spazzing out. This is the same commander that extended him so that he couldn't leave the army, and forced his pregnant wife to drive a U-Haul full of stuff across the country to his home of record. This regulation goes all the way up to the brigade commander, and is still under review. He's gonna win though. Soldier 2 and 3 wrote their congressmen. Soldier 3 went as far as to put in a complaint to the Inspector General, which is a huge problem for the chain of command. Soldier 3, who was the first to be accused and has started this whole thing, goes to trial to defend himself, and his lawyer absolutely demolishes the accuser in court. Today, Soldier 3's charges were dropped, which essentially is paving the way for both Soldier 1 and Soldier 2 to get away with a mean-ass dub. That's a power move. Probably in class, we know how when you ask if you can use the bathroom, teachers are like, "Can you?" Well, one classmate when he asked, and our teacher said that, was like, "Yes I can," and just left. There was a kid in my class that kept asking to go to the bathroom, was told to wait. A few minutes pass, and he asked again. Was told to wait. He said he was going to piss himself if he couldn't go. The teacher said, "Can't you wait 5 more minutes without peeing yourself?" Student said, "Fine," and peed himself right then and there, in front of the class. One of my friend's daughters has hearing aids. They are similar to the ones old people use, but with an extra piece on them. They're not the ones that are attached to your head. If someone is bothering her and she doesn't want to deal with them, she pulls her hearing aids out and keeps doing whatever she was doing. This girl is 8. A friend and I were driving home after a night out, and we get pulled over by the police for speeding. The cop approaches our vehicle, and my friend, the driver, says to the cop, "I didn't even see you. Where were you parked?" The cop responds by saying he was parked at the bottom of an apartment building driveway that has a blind spot. My friend says to the cop, "Well, I own that building. It's private property, and I've asked you guys numerous times not to park there, as I don't want my building having a reputation of being a speed trap." A couple of minutes later, after the cop verifies the information, he comes to the car, apologizes, and sends us on our way. I have a good personal one. Worked at a major office retail store for a while in the tech section. Everyone was paid just above minimum wage, except for the department leads, who made $10 an hour. Well, our tech lead moved and they didn't replace him right away. So I busted ass and made sure to fill appropriately. Also coming up was Black Friday, and nobody was allowed to take off. Company policy, no ifs, ands, or buts, all hands on deck. Well, I asked off anyway, hoping maybe they would let me. My girlfriend's uncle was always gone on deployment, and this was one of the few years he would be home for Thanksgiving, and I really wanted to finally meet him. They told me no. Go back to tech position. I fulfill that duty for about a month as if I was the tech lead, then approached the store manager asking if I could have the position as well as the raise that accompanies it. He sat me down and explained how they weren't sure yet, and if I could work really hard for the next 6 months then they would reevaluate and see if I was fit for the position then. The other department managers all figured I'd be given the job, and were all surprised when it had happened. I smiled and said, "Thank you for your time," walked straight to the work computer we used and typed this exact sentence, "Store manager's name, this is an official 9-day notice, as my last day working here will be the day before Thanksgiving." Easy. I walk right back into his office after printing it out and hand it to him. He reads it, looks up at me and asks if I can stay for Black Friday. I told him, "You couldn't pay me enough,